Marx knew communism wouldn't work without the evolutionary theory. See, our American system is founded on the idea that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain rights. Communism is founded on the idea that all men evolved from slime and you're nothing but an animal. Major difference. We covered that on video number 5. Karl Marx had 6 children. 3 died of starvation in infancy. 2 others committed suicide. Not what you consider a successful father. Okay? Is that with my extra minutes I get, or that's just a regular? Okay, good. Okay. At a very early age, while still a pupil at the ecclesiastical school, Christian school, Comrade Stalin, Joseph Stalin, developed a critical mind and revolutionary sentiments. He began to read Darwin and became an atheist. Joseph Stalin went to a Christian school as a kid. Joseph Stalin read that book and it changed his life forever. Joseph Stalin's responsible for killing somewhere between 60 and 100 million of his own people. I've got several people on my staff, including my daughter-in-law, who are from Ukraine, where 10 million people were killed by Joseph Stalin's goons in the Ukraine. Andrew Carnegie said he loved the Lord, wanted to serve God with his life. First year in college, he fell into believing in evolution. He said, man, if evolution's true, then I'm going to apply this to the business world. The strongest survive. And you won't understand the history of the trust busters and all that stuff that had to happen in the late 1800s until you understand how evolutionary thinking ties in. Carnegie left money behind to start an organization, which is still running, up in Berkeley, California, called the National Center for Science Education. The purpose of the National Center, the current president is Dr. Jeannie Scott. Their whole purpose is to keep creation out of schools and keep evolution in the schools. And if you try to do anything to get evolution out of your schools, the National Center for Science Education will be down your throat at Carnegie's expense. And he used to love the Lord. What happened? President Roosevelt, good man in many ways, but he fell into believing this evolution theory, which teaches, you know, of course, one race is better than another. Roosevelt thought the Indians were an inferior species. You won't understand what happened to the Indians in the last 150 years until you understand how evolution ties into the thinking. That's why we were so mean to the Indians. E.O. Wilson at Harvard University said, as were many persons from Alabama, I was a born-again Christian. When I was 15, I entered the Southern Baptist Church with great fervor and interest in the fundamentalist religion. I left at 17 when I got to the University of Alabama and heard about evolution theory. First year in college, destroyed his faith. Philip Wentworth, back in 1932, said, when I entered Harvard in the fall of 24, I was not only a Christian, I was also an avowed candidate for the ministry. Then for 4 years, I underwent a process of mental readjustment that shook my little world to its foundations. Through it all, only one thing was clear to me. If I could reconcile religion with intelligence, I knew I could go on into my chosen career fortified by the experience. If I could not, every consideration of honor would compel me to make other plans. In the end, I gave up the ministry. Folks, there is no conflict between intelligence and the Bible. There is no conflict between science and the Bible. There is a great conflict between evolution and the Bible. And there's a great conflict between evolution and science. But they want you to think evolution and science go together. No, beer is sold at football games quite a lot. Beer has nothing to do with football. And beer does not become athletic by association with football. Okay? The fact that evolution is currently in our science textbooks does not make it part of science. I'm sorry that it's there. I'm working to get rid of it. But in the meantime, don't fall for this idea that, well, it's in the books, it must be part of science. No, it's not. Okay? I think if you love your kids, you ought to get them out. I don't think it's possible to fix the problem on the short term. That's why about 12% of Americans now go to private school or Christian school. And the number's growing all the time. I don't think it's possible. I think you ought to get them out if you can, okay? The Bible says, cease, my son, to hear instruction that causeth thee to err from the words of knowledge. But some of you people are more worried about Johnny going off to college, getting a certified degree so that he can make more money. The fact that 3 out of 4 are going to lose their faith doesn't bother you, just so he makes a lot of money in life. Better think long and hard about that one. This is how the atheists rate the different states on how well they treat evolution. They think the folks in California are doing a wonderful job of teaching evolution to their kids. They think the folks in Florida are doing a lousy job. Yay, Florida. Okay. If you can't get them out, make sure your kids know the truth. Don't send them off unarmed. My video series is there to provide information. It's not copyrighted. Copy it all you want. Give it to your friends. If you don't like my jokes, edit them out, okay? Bible says you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. I think it's wonderful. You don't need to lay your brains at the door when you come study the Bible or study science or study creation. Everything I observe in nature says, wow, there must be an awesome designer. Not only did God design this world, He wants to have a personal relationship with His creation. It's wonderful. I know I'm going to heaven when I die. It's not because I'm good. Are you kidding? If I get what I deserve, I'm in serious trouble. I've been forgiven. That is awesome. And I certainly don't feel intellectually inferior for believing in creation. Quite the opposite. I look at the evidence and say, wow, this matches, it all matches. It's perfect. Florida has laws requiring textbooks to be accurate. So does Texas. So does Wisconsin. So does Alabama. So does California. The textbooks ought to be accurate. I'm not trying to get evolution out of your schools. But all the evidence that's used to support the theory is wrong and ought to be taken out. Take the lies out of the books. Don't try to get evolution out of schools. Get the lies out of the textbooks. You can demand they cut out the pages. I mentioned in a debate one time, I said, these following pages ought to be cut out of this book because they're not true. The professor said, what are you going to replace it with? I said, what? He said, you want to cut these pages out of the book. What are you going to replace this with? I said, are you telling me if we take a lie out of the book, we can't take a lie out of the book until I get a replacement? How about shorten the book by 20 pages? The kids won't care. What the professor was trying to avoid saying was, we don't have any real evidence for our theory except things that have been proven wrong, and if you take this out of the book, I'm stuck with nothing to prove my theory. Well, that's your fault. Don't blame me. You chose the dumb theory, not me. Get some evidence, okay? Glue the pages together, put a warning sticker in the front cover. You got to get students my little brainwashed book. Our printing cost is $1 a piece. Buy 1,000 of them, give them to every kid in the county. Teachers will have a hard time teaching evolution for the next 10 years if you give those things out. Get your kid exempt from class. Say, teacher, I don't want my kid taught evolution. There's legal ways to make sure that they can't teach them evolution, okay? You can teach creation in the classroom. There's never been a law against it. In closing here, God doesn't lie. The Bible says God cannot lie. He promised, whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. 35 years ago next month, I said, Lord, I'm a sinner. He said, you can say that again. I said, yes, I know, Lord, but and I believe I deserve to go to hell. He said, you can say that again too. I said, but Lord, I believe you died for me, and I want you to forgive me and save me right now. And February 9th, 1969, I prayed and asked the Lord to forgive me, save me. Hey, where are you going when you die? You really ought to think about it. You're going to be dead for a long time. You're going to actually be dead longer than you're going to be alive. Think about that one. If we can help, that's what our ministry exists for. I appreciate the work going into the animations, but folks, I'd have to say, in a court of law, it wouldn't hold up 3 seconds. It's an imagination. It's an animation. It's not reality. We don't observe it. So the argument tonight is, where's the evidence for evolution? I'm still waiting to see it. Thank you so much.
We will now enter the rebuttal period. I believe Dr. Rainbow used 53 minutes, which is the first, so you used your first rebuttal period, a little bit more, but we'll extend grace on that. So you have now 10 minutes of rebuttal.
Okay, some things Dr. Rainbow said tonight that I think I should not leave hanging. He said half the population of the U.S. population rejects evolution. I think the implication is because they reject it because they don't understand it. I think quite the opposite is true. I think they do understand it and reject it. How many of you think you do understand what the evolution is trying to teach and you still reject it? Now, the choice is for the evolutionist to look at these hands and say, well, you people are stupid. Or to look at it and say, maybe there's a reason they're not getting it. And the evolutionist typically thinks, if I had, 75 hours to show you all this stuff, I could make you believe in it. Well,